Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed and welcome back to Katawa Shoujo. Let us see how much more there is left of this game. Are we going to get to Lilly's endings today? Well, that's probably already within the title if it is or if it is not. Drop the subject. I really don't want to bring up Awanaka any more than necessary. This date is, after all, for me and Lilly. I don't want to think about a previous relationship at a time like this. No, that was the last I saw of her. We never talked again either. Seconds pass in silence before Lilly speaks again. Moving to Yamako must have been hard for you, having your friends and even your girlfriend taken from you for no fault of your own. The worst of it passed while I was in the hospital. When all that surrounds you is four white walls and a small television, your mind takes on a life of its own. It's like my old school, I guess. I try not to dwell on what's happened and keep thinking ahead. All that reminiscing does is get me down, and it's largely thanks to you that it feels like things are finally getting back on track. That's pleasing to hear, Hisao. She lowers her head face slightly. Her expression is pensive. I guess I went too far and embarrassed her. I suppose you went through something a bit like what I did when you entered Yamako anyway, right? I imagine the vast majority of our schools did after all. You said yourself that you made friends in your old school. I can't imagine many followed you. Lilly's deep smile drops, her expression unexpectedly darkening. Even her hands retreat to her lap. After a long while she speaks. Hisao, could you promise not to tell anyone else what I'm about to... I promise. She is slightly taken aback by my serious tone, but then relents and smiles weak before continuing. When I moved to Yamako, I did regret losing the friends I had at my other school. But there was one person whom I most regretted not seeing again. He was the reason I took up English as a future career. Considering she came from an all-girls school, that can't have been a schoolmate then. I rejected the confessions I received until then for him. Every time I improved my English skills, his praise was my most treasured reward. It's funny, isn't it? Someone like me, able to boast about the people who have set eyes on me, liking someone so utterly unattainable as my tutor. It truly is the most ridiculous thing. Did you? She quickly shakes her head from side to side. I couldn't. Even then I knew it was impossible. A silence reigns over both of us. This does seem to explain her ardent focus on her future in teaching English, but I can't help thinking of her confession to me. She lost him without even letting her feelings be known. Did she somehow fear that would happen again, but with me? I don't really know what to make of it. I've heard of such relationships before, taboos born of such things as puberty and youth. The fact that she has the good judgment not to act on it, though, is heartening. I know this must sound strange, but please don't think of me. Why would I think any less of you for that? To be honest, I think he must have been a very nice person if you liked him so much. Not only that, but you stopped yourself before going too far. For a moment she looks somewhat lost. Most unexpectedly, though, it isn't a second before she starts to laugh. The sound takes me off guard. It's not a giggle nor a restrained chuckle, but an honest and genuine laughter. My bad. I find myself smiling not just at her display of relief and happiness, but for her to trust me enough to let me see this most private of secrets. Before I realise that I feel her palm touching my face again. Her face is gentle as ever, with her thumb slowly stroking my cheek. You're kind, Hisao. I really do love you. Seeing her face like this, with her palm gently caressing my face, I think tonight has been a wonderful night. I guess we've both had pretty weird pasts. I think by most standards, our present is rather odd as well. I smile and hang my head. This woman can easily run rings around me. Of that I'm quite sure. Are you sure about that one? I'll look back around the room with its continuing quiet hum of patrons. This place probably fits into the odd category too. It is a tad overbearing. That's one word for it, yes. I catch the eye of a scurrying waiter, a short, scrawny guy no older than 20. He kind of reminds me of Kenji, but unlike him, the waiter isn't dressed for winter during midsummer. After a court-bound offer to remove our plates, Lilly asks for the bill politely and softly. With expert coordination, he maneuvers around the table our plates and hands to retrieve our bill. In no time, he appears through the door, smartly handing our bill to Lilly, who promptly hands it to me, causing him to raise an eyebrow. As I read the small computer-printed leaflet, the cost is considerably more than I expected. Hisao? Oh, I quickly stammer out the amount, to which Lilly merely nods and reaches for her purse. Giving her card to the waiter, he disappears once again. That was a disproportionately large amount of money. The statement seems to make Lilly slightly uncomfortable. My family leaves me more than enough for my education. The same goes for my sister, though she dislikes being reminded of the fact. That said, I too dislike throwing money about, but this one time I think I can make an exception. Just for you. Not only did you choose our date, but you paid for both of us as well. I take the bridge of my nose in my fingers. I can't believe how high you've set the bar for our next date. She gives a small giggle. I'll be looking forward to it, Hisao. The waiter reappears beside us, as if by magic, and hands Lily's card back to her. Heavily picking up on her lack of sight, he places the card in her hand with an extra, perhaps unneeded amount of firmness to make sure of her grip. Leaving, he exercises a measure of diplomacy by keeping a neutral face despite my own expression. Clapping my hands together, I stand up from my seat in order to bring an end to our night out. Shall we be off then, milady? Milady. What is that kind of saying anyways? You okay there? I snap upwards out of my sheets and sit bolt upright in bed, as if an electric shock had just run through my whole body. The night air feels cold against the sweat of my bare skin, my breathing short and rugged nearly to the point of hyperventilation. Mind racing, I bring my hand to my head in an attempt to soothe my body's panicked state. It takes me a number of seconds to realize my hand is shaking violently, even as I press it against my face. More seconds pass in complete silence, my desperate attempts to subdue my body and mind slowly, thankfully working. Gathering myself, I start taking measure of the state I'm in. It feels like I've run a marathon, every muscle feeling tense and sweat practically pouring off me. I carefully direct my attention to a beat in my chest, measuring out of rhythm in my head. Sure enough, my unreliable heart is functioning properly. For once. Just, what the hell was that? Food allergy? A heart attack? A bad nightmare? Medicine side effects? I've heard about panic attacks, and this does seem to have the hallmarks of one. I can't even be bothered thinking about it right now. I feel utterly exhausted yet completely awake after this experience. I look over to the other side of my bed, the pale white of the silent figure's face almost glowing in the nighttime darkness of the room. Just the sight of her is enough to calm me down significantly. Figure's face. Oh, miss? We went back here then. Her graceful demeanour persists even while she's asleep. Her perfectly measured breathing and gentle face making it impossible to tell whether she's awake or truly sleeping. Giving in to temptation, I delicately run my fingertips over her hand. Her skin is soft to the touch, so it's always been, yet warm even in the cold night. It's at times like this, silently appreciating each other's presence, but I feel we're closest. My fingers stop at her wrist, and I bring my hand back down to the bed beside me. I'm not entirely sure why, but as we become even closer to each other, it felt as if something grew between us. I'm not entirely sure what it is, nor whether it existed before we'd fallen in love. Everything is moving so fast. I don't mind at all, but it feels unlike Lilly to be pushing things this much. Thankfully, there aren't any students milling around in the hallways at this hour of the morning, lest I be interrogated on why I'm carrying 2 plates of breakfast in my room while dressed in an obviously hastily donned uniform. That isn't to say things like this never happen, of course. A single security guard patrolling between 2 sets of bedrooms situated right next to each other is a very small force compared to the adolescent's hormones. Come to think of it, the fact that it's Monday morning perhaps helps. I'm not really sure why, but Mondays seem to bother me less than they do most others. It takes a little creative use of my hands and elbow, but eventually I manage to work the door to my dormitory room open. Stepping inside, I see Lily just getting up from the bed and tiredly rubbing her eyes. She looks like a mess, just like most other times I've seen her soon after she wakes up. She really isn't a morning person. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. She groggily shakes her head, but morning light illuminating makes her for a very pleasant sight. It's okay. I need to get up anyway. What time is it? I put my plate down on my desk and turn the clock around to check the time. Still early. Don't worry, there's plenty of time left before school. She sits on the side of the bed and begins to sniff the air. As she does so, I quickly move her plate away and put it on the desk beside... I don't even know why I did that. Desk beside mine. Yes, I got some breakfast. Shower and clothes come first, though. And a kiss. She stands still for a moment with her chin pointedly slightly out. I gladly acquiesce and press my lips to hers, savouring the soft thing before breaking off. With a small, sweet smile, apparently quite satisfied, she slowly makes her way to the showers. I stretch to try and wake myself up a little more, briefly looking at the steaming dishes on the desk. Rice, fish, miso soup, and some vegetables. A standard breakfast for a somewhat unusual day. I grab the bottles from my desk and start taking my daily regime of pills. Sometimes I wonder what these things are even good for, given all the troubles I've had since the initial accident. I can't even say that it doesn't hurt to take them, considering the side effects so far. Well, whatever. Doctor's orders are that I have to take them, and rationally suggests that I'd be well served to trust his judgment over mine. They are the experts after all, and after your dealings on the holiday where you forgot to take them one morning, and you keeled over like that, then it would be good to take them. It doesn't take long for the noise of a shower to cease, a quick one apparently being fine for Lily given her circumstances. Emerging from the bathroom, she looks significantly more awake, having had the chance to collect herself. And without a word, I gently take her hand in mine and guide her to my desk. Considering I don't have a table in my room as she does, it'll have to do. Thank you, Hisao. What did you prepare for breakfast? Just rice and some vegetables. Something fast. Her face lights up at revelation. That's quite a breakfast. This is normal for you? Now she's just being nice. I have little doubt considering her past, but this isn't exactly a high-class meal by her standards. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Just because we're students doesn't mean we can take it lightly. That's my belief anyway. And that should be your belief as well, you watching. From what others I've talked to have said, I might be in the minority. I take a seat on the side of my bed and begin eating together with Lily. Her chopsticks lightly tapping out the outlines of the vegetables just as I noticed her do during our date. This is quite nice, Hisao. I had no idea you could cook this well. This time she's much more genuine. I can tell that much. That said, cooking really isn't anything special at all. I think cooking is, by the way. There are so many different kind of qualities that you could range out there, from the worst to the most supreme of food qualities, in which is made by a chef who knows what they're doing. After a bit of practice, it's pretty easy to make a simple dish. Most of the credit goes to modern technology. Still, after years of cooking for myself, I should hope so. I got bored of eating instant noodles and ordering pizza every time my parents were both working, so I taught myself to make a few meals. I'm still trying to get the knack of it, though. You'll make a good wife some... Lily! I take a grain of rice and place it onto my thumb, before carefully taking aim and giving it a good flick. Lily jumps a little as it hits her cheek, right on target. I can't help chuckling at her expense. She lowers her brow and tries her best to assume a harsh and serious expression. Oh, that's right. What is it? Did you have any problems sleeping last night? You seemed restless. So she was awake back then, or at least partially so. Whether it's my heart or a nightmare caused by the side effects of my medicine, the last thing I want is for her to be worried about me even more. That's not the point. People care about one another regardless of the kind of worries. Even before my relationship with Lily, I felt my body was a drag on everything I did. My body's my burden alone, so as long as I'm with her, I'll continue to act as normally as possible. No, not particularly. Is that so? That's good then. Luckily, she seems to take me at my word. Come to think of it, there was something else I wanted to ask. Oh? How should I put it? When you dream, do you see people and objects? Yes, of course Oh, I feel more than a little sheepish for that slip of a tongue. However earnest it may be, Lily looks unperturbed though. But you don't taste, feel, nor smell things. I move to answer, but find myself stuck before thinking about it. The more I mull it over, the more I realise that her hypothesis is correct. That's true, I guess. I never looked at it that way. Are you saying that you do? For the most part, I only hear in dreams, but yes, sometimes I touch and smell things as well. I'm just asking since Akira thought it very strange I did when I brought it up with her. If you don't either, then maybe it's due to my blindness. That makes sense. You rely on your other senses more than me, so maybe that affects your dreams as well. The wonders of the human body, I guess. For the rest of the time before school, we quietly eat the hearty breakfast in front of us, exchange a few small pieces of small talk as we do, and clash starts a quick peek of the door assures nobody looking directly at the entrance of the boys' dormitory, so we walk out with the path clear. Ah, the weather's good today. I stretch as Lily and I make our way outside, the bright morning sun beaming down on us. By now, a few students can be seen doing the same, making their way to the main school building, either from the dorms or through the main gate. It does feel nice and warm. Our hands linked and her cane tapping the ground. We begin in earnest our trip to the school building, enjoying the chattering throngs of students around us. That would be the last day of exams, no? Yeah. How are you going in them? Fairly well, all things considered. You seem a bit stressed by them, though. Is that obvious? Huh. I don't think it's just the exams, though. A lot of stuff's been happening in a short amount of time, and I'm not doing that well on the humanities subjects. You're doing well in science, though, aren't you? Well, it would be hard not to do well in science for me. Come to think of it, didn't you say before you weren't very good at science or maths? She suddenly looks very sheepish, my remark no doubt hitting home. Lee's sense of pride really can be a double-edged sword. Well, aside from that, have you ever given thought to what you might do with that ability? It seems a pity to waste it. A bit, mostly at Muto's prompting. In any case, I'll probably end up doing science as a career in some form. That's good to hear, Hisao. As we enter the gardens, I suddenly receive an unsolicited pat on the back. The green-dressed corporate dances around to meet me, evidently not paying any heed to Lily at my side. Great, Kenji. Would you just bugger off while we're having our morning walk? Good morning, Satie. It's good to hear you're doing well. It feels slightly odd to see Lily speak her so formally. She comes to address me more casually over the months, though I have seen her speak more formally to classmates from time to time. Some people never change, I guess. Not that I'd say a calm and polite manner is a bad thing, but it was one of the reasons I liked being around her to begin with after all. Kenji seems to take a moment to work out who is beside me, and probably hasn't noticed us holding hands either. I wonder if those glasses of his actually do anything. Oh, hey Lily. Good luck on your exams too. I'll see you after school then, man? The slight edge to his voice makes me think those words are meant to be an imperative rather than a casual farewell. I guess I'll have to smooth things over later. Sure. See you. Kenji nods courtly. He moves to pass by us, but he's too busy glaring in Lyri's general direction to take notice of her cane. Before I could try to react and save the situation, Kenji trips and reflexively reaches out for a handhold. Unfortunately, said handhold turns out to be Lily's arm. What? Why? Are you like that, Kenji, you idiot? Ah, damn, are you two okay? Kenji quickly raises back up, seemingly unfazed by the accident. What the hell? No problem, man, no problem. This is nothing. My body can take much worse abuse. Lily lies face down on the grass. She doesn't look hurt by the incident. More startled than anything. I move close to offer her my help. Are you alright, Lily? Hey, Satu. Kenji offers her a hand, tentatively touching hers to let her know what he's doing. He says some oddious things sometimes, but I do think he may be a generally good person at heart. I imagine he feels pretty bad about this. To her surprise of mine, though, Lily pounds on the ground with her fist without warning. Damn it! Kenji freezes, entirely caught by surprise at her outburst. I'm just as shocked. She never acted like this before, not even around Shizune. Aha! Seemingly only now remembering that there are people around her, Lilly slowly climbs to her feet. Her face as she does so makes me retreat a little. I only catch a glimpse of her expression before she turns away, but it's not something I'll forget soon. She showed plenty of annoyance during her clashes at Shizune, but this flash of anger was something else. There's no way that this is just about this petty incident. She paused for a moment before sighing and walking on ahead. I really don't know what to make of this. I'll talk to you later, dude. See you. Yeah, see ya. Kenji scratches the back of his head trying to find something to say, then shrugs and walks away, giving us a wide berth. I quickly catch up to Lilly. She turns her head a little to acknowledge my presence, but nothing else. I should probably scold her for lashing out like that, but I also don't want to get into a shouting match with her. She's still very obviously annoyed. In the end, I keep my mouth shut and wait for her to cool off. After a quiet walk in, we eventually reach the top of the third floor stairs, and the juncture where we part every day. I turn to leave before she leaves. While I do like the comfortable and warm silences we usually share, this is anything but. I don't want to leave things like this. You seem quieter than usual recently. Is anything wrong? She shakes her head almost automatically, as if to dispel any notion that I need to worry about her. It's just the exams taking their toll. I'll be fine. I don't think that's the reason. I very nearly say so, but decide against it. Yeah. There's no point trying to draw it out of her if she doesn't want to tell me, especially when she's in a foul mood like this. If you're sure, I'll see you later then. As I turn down the hall to go to my class, Lily's soft voice rings out from behind me. Hi, Sal. Yeah? I'm sorry. With that, Lilly makes off down the hallway to her own classroom, her hands skating along the metal railings. I still stand and watch her until she turns into her classroom and out of sight, before going to my own classroom with a fair measure of reluctance. As usual, I'm early. Muto is fiddling with folders and papers on his desk as he prepares for the day, while a handful of students mill around chatting away. While my feelings about Lilly have dissipated, far from it, her mention of my exam performance did remind me that I have my own life journey to attend to. I have to think about it. I have realized I do generally want to pursue science in some form as a career, rather than it simply being the path of least resistance. Until now, though, I didn't have much of an idea of where in the field I wanted to go to. Just science is a pretty broad category of jobs. Chemistry, biology, physics. Something Lilly mentioned earlier focused my thoughts. Something I'd only idly pondered about before. I'm not seriously considered following this specific path. I walk up to Muto's desk, his attention too focused on preparing for the day's lessons to notice my approach. It's the same every day. Good morning. He looked with an expression of mild surprise that's quickly replaced by his typical awkward smile. Good morning, Naki. How can I help you? Do you mind if I ask you something? He looks down at his messy pile of books on the desk, before putting down the papers in his hand and stand up with some difficulty to properly address me. That's what I'm here for, after all. Ask away. I was just wondering, what would you say is the motivation behind teaching? He thinks of this question for a few moments before responding, evidently far from having a prepared answer. If you talk to 10 different teachers, I think you'll get 10 different answers to that question. While I can only speak for myself, I'd say that I teach because... He sinks into thought again, carefully assessing the way he wishes to present his idea. Think of it this way. When you were a child, you probably played with sticks and pebbles in moving water such as the gutter or puddles, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people do that when they're young. Well, it's not just when they're young for some, though it does take on another form. My point is, though, that when one is doing that, they're curious about how the water will flow or be changed. I keep clicking the right-click mouse. Everyone, even at their young age, possesses an intense wonderment about how the world around them works, even in its smallest forms. I still feel that sense of wonderment about the universe. Even just reading about new discoveries or classic experiments give me a renewed sense of awe at how marvelous everything is, from the farthest stars to the smallest puddle. I just hope that I can give others even a small piece of that wonderment I feel, even if I can do that, even if it's just one person. I think that I can be happy as a teacher. He scratched his head as he mentally reviews what he said. I feel like I understand him better now. Even if he's awkward around others, he does have a genuine want to be around them and offer them a piece of his self that he values. Well, Lilly told me yesterday rings in my ears. I think he gets along well with others, huh? She always did say I was unusually curious. Sorry if I was a little mundaning. Does it ask you a question? It does. Thank you. I also had another question actually. Oh, what might that be? Do you have any college brochures or guides? It's about time I started getting some applications in. He nods and bends down to look inside his desk. As he does, I notice that he is wearing a remarkably genuine smile. I don't think I've ever seen him act this natural around others. Perhaps this is a Muto, the teacher but rather Muto the person. Here, if you need any more, feel free to ask. He hands me about half a dozen brochures and booklets of various colours and sizes, which I take eagerly. Yes, it will be this information which I'll use to forge my future. I think now, after all this time and all these trials, I can finally start to see the big picture of my life ahead of me. My body may be like this, but my mind is still very much able. Thank you. This is strange. That single thought has grazed my mind a countless number of times since my life here began. It feels like an easy way to discard a troubling question, as if simply labeling something with those 3 words will make it go, what's that in the background? Or at least not worth thinking about any further. My life before my heart attack feels more blurry every time I try to remember it, and my mind struggles, oh, it's a cup of tea, keep up with all the events suddenly happening around me since. I heard somewhere that this is what it feels like to be left stranded in a country with only the most basic understanding of the local language. Indeed, when I think about it, that seems a marvellous apt analogy for what's happened to me. But such situations are also supposed to make you very capable in that language very fast, as you're forced to learn it in order to survive. Put another way, the situation becomes sink or swim. I wonder if I've really managed to swim after all this time. The exams are stressing me out a lot, even though they're finally coming to an end, but I've remained in Muto's favour, and I have some sort of direction for my future now. But I keep using that stupid meaningless phrase. This is strange. It really is amazing how fast one comes to accept being surrounded by people with sometimes incredibly jarring disabilities and conditions. So much so that I really wonder why I feel so much like a foreigner. It certainly isn't for lack of socialization or friends. I've come to know most of my classmates on first name terms, and know a few others around the school, whether they're missing an arm or a leg, or their eyesight. The students here are just like anyone else of their age. I can navigate the halls I once lost myself in with an ease I'd not expected to ever have, thanks to the school's logical layout, and can engage my teachers in comfortable discussion. I swirl around gently the tea in my cup. The reflected image of my face becomes distorted by the moving liquid. This is strange. I used to hate drinking tea. Maybe I'm thinking too much. The familiar sound of china rattling from a teacup touching an accompanying saucer rings out. Is something the matter? Don't worry, it's nothing. Maniko! I take a long sip of the tea in front of me as the girls do. Just whirling away with the time in Lilly's room sipping tea with her and Hanako, it feels familiar, almost nostalgic. So how is your work in the newspaper club going, Hanako? I want to know too, it sounds like it would be quite interesting. Hanako's face turns down at the attention placed upon her, for her smile belies the fact that she generally likes being the centre of interest for the two of us. It's good. I think I'm getting better at it. Naomi and a couple of her friends handle most of her jobs, getting stories and stuff. I just do the computer things, like putting the stories together and getting it printed. It's nice, since I can sit and concentrate. I see Lilly's low-tech nature isn't shared by Hanako. While sitting in the room compiling other people's newspaper articles into documents doesn't strike as overly outgoing. It is heartening to see her wide her widening her circle of friends. Baby steps, I guess. It's probably a bit much to be expecting her to become a socialite like Lilly. How are you finding Naomi? I've heard she can be quite troublesome at times. And Lilly's going into her mothering mode over Hanako, letting go of her is something she's had to learn. Hanako stretches her cheek, thinking on her answer. Naomi's nice. She's a bit loud sometimes, and a bit tiring, but she's really helpful. Her friends are nice too. That's wonderful to hear, Hanako. I'm glad you found a source of such enjoyment. Lilly's smile is warm and genuine, but I can sense a touch of wistfulness to it as well. Hanako seems to miss that entirely, but I don't think for a second I imagine it. I suppose it's because I've slowly come to pay more and more attention to everything going on around me. With things seemingly happening faster and faster, it feels like I'll miss something if I'm not as observant as possible. With the exams, my newfound love life, trying to fit in some studying regarding my options for college and university, and my heart condition applying the brakes on everything at irritatingly random times. My brain's been overdrive recently. It makes me appreciate the rare quiet times such as these. I guess this is why Lilly came to appreciate her weekly walks to the convenience store and her tea parties with Hanako. Despite her like of being surrounded by others, they gave her a moment of peace in a chaotic and busy life. Thank God the exams are over, huh? The comment draws an earnest chuckle from both of the girls. It seems like everybody's been a lot happier since the exams ended last week. So what are you doing for the summer holidays? Hanako. I quickly count the days in my head. Today's Monday and school finishes on Saturday. 5 days to go after all. I was thinking of travelling, just around a bit. There's a lot of places I want to see, and I think I have enough money to pay for the bus and train rides. Naomi and one of the other girls in the newspaper club said they might come along too. Her look indicates she's given the matter quite a lot of thought. I'm quite surprised she's contemplating something like this. Good on you, Hanako. It seems she's really become intent on striking out on her own. Is there anywhere in particular you're thinking of going? I was thinking that Kyoto sounds nice. I think I'll try to go to a few places though. Lilly nods in approval, happy with Hanako's plans. While I cast my eyes to Lilly, I refrain from asking her the same question. She's been evasive with her plans for the future for a long time now, but I never seem to get a good time to broach the subject alone with her. Well, I'm not gonna lie, you've been pretty evasive about certain other topics regarding, let's say, your heart condition and a certain other song that was quite close to you in your previous life, Hisao. Every time it comes up in conversation, it feels like she's either unsure of herself or simply dodging the question. It's troubling. Be sure to call sometime when you're out and about. I gave her my number before, right? Hannah gives a quick nod, a happy smile on her face. It's strange to see how happy people seem to become when they have a goal to work towards. Yuko seems to brighten whenever her university aspirations are brought up, and now Hanako's just the same. So why do I still feel this uncertainty? And why Lilly too? Relationships really can be irritatingly troublesome sometimes. What time is it? Oh. It takes me a second to remember that Lilly's clock doesn't have any visual feedback. I really should know given how many times I've been in her room. Nevertheless, I take my watch from my bag and quickly check it. The reason for her asking becoming clear. It's about 20 past, nearly curfew. Hanako raised to her feet, dusting herself off and neating her gown after doing so. I'd better be going then. Good night, Lilly. Hisao. Sleep well, Hanako. See you tomorrow. With that, she walks to the door and quickly makes her exit. Now it's just us two. Silence. This seems to be happening more and more between Lilly and me recently. After a few seconds, I finally find something to talk about. Oh yeah, I talked to Muto on Friday and finally checked out some guides on college and how to apply for it. That's good news. If you're going to be applying for colleges, I assume you have some idea in mind of what you might do in the future. I think I've settled on becoming a science teacher. It's going to take a while to get through university and everything to be qualified, but I think it'll be worth it. Lily's face brightens considerably at the news. I suppose with her wish to becoming a teacher, she's delighted I take the same kind of path. So you've decided on a career of teaching? I think that path suits you most excellently, Hisao. I smile and nod, this time even if I know she can't see me doing so. I know she feels it. I imagine Muto would have taken to the news well. That's one word for it. Hey Lily? Yes? I know you want to be a teacher, but for a second I wonder whether I should really ask her the question on my mind. But that's quickly brushed aside by the fact that this is rather late to have second thoughts. Surely you don't still think I'd be offended by something regarding my blindness? Her accusing tone is betrayed by her grinning face, amused at my awkwardness in raising the topic. Some things never change. Good point, I guess. I was just thinking whether or not being blind would be a hindrance with your ambitions to become a teacher and all. She looks mildly surprised before giving the question some thought. I refuse to think she's never actually pondered this issue before. I wonder, Hisao, could you close your eyes for a moment? Okay. Raise an eyebrow, do as she requests. I have no idea what she has in mind, and my questions only increase as I peek out from one eye. Taking the black ribbon she usually wears in her hair from the cabinet beside her bedside, she advances towards me while running it through her fingers to remove any stray hairs remaining on the piece of cloth. I suddenly click onto her intentions as I feel the black stripe make contact with my face, wrapping around my head and over my eyes. What exactly is this for? It's a little test, Hisao. Since you seem to be wondering, I'll let you see things as I do for a time. So that's what this is about. To be honest, this actually sounds kind of fun. Childish and rather silly to anyone who would be watching, but a bit of silly fun never hurt anyone. I stand up with a heave, my hands quickly moving out in front of me to warn me of any obstacles. Okay, now what? Now, touch you if you say so. Now then, I slowly make my way forwards towards the sound of Lily's voice. My walking speed could barely even be called a shuffle, the entire experience feeling alien enough that I don't want to risk inadvertently tripping over anything, such as her table or her haphazard pile of books. Something soft yet solid brushes against my left leg. Further inspection reveals it to be Lily's bed. I move onwards, finding myself thankful that Lily's room is so neat and tidy. Even the pile of books she has are gently kept close to the wall, well out of harm's way. The hard wall pressing against my outstretched hands makes me furrow my brow in frustration. Hey Lily, where are you? What are you doing over there? I'm over here. Lily's voice comes from the other side of the room, far from where it was before. Use your ears, man! Even to my untrained eyes, if she's going out of her way to avoid me reaching her, then this is just a game to her. Of course it is. Or it could be that, actually, compared to a life where even the concept of sight is an abstract one. A few minutes in a blindfold are nothing. I guess she's made her point. She's more than capable of navigating her room. And further, I've seen how independent she is even when compared to many of the others in Yumako. Well, if it is just a game, I might as well play it wholeheartedly. With a pace much quicker than before, I move towards the source of her voice, daftly sidestepping the table in the center of the room thanks to remembering its position. I've got you now. She gives an impish giggle, one just long enough to work out that she's passing just beside me. I quickly turn around to face the new direction, but the table wasn't there before. Ow. I slowly sit up next to the table, raising my blindfold as I reach my aching head. I give an irritated kick to the table that's sitting just in front of where I fell. Utterly pointless, but the thing deserved it. Hisao? Lily's still standing just to my side, obviously unsure of what's befallen me. Sorry, I kind of fell over. Are you hurt? My head hurts, but I think I'm okay. I think the table moved in order to trip me over. She giggles as she walks over and takes a seat beside me, her hand resting on my own. I suppose that's the end of that then. I think so. but I also think I get the point, though I do wish it hadn't involved such a headache. Lilly suddenly looks blank. Point? And I return an extraordinary flat look. That was just for fun? I just thought it might ease you up a little about the subject. You always seem to tiptoe around it after all. In regard to teaching, sight isn't that important. There are plenty of classes taught by entirely blind teachers, and more than enough resources for me to learn the subject. It's as simple as that, really. I slump my shoulders and give a snort of amusement. Yeah, I understand. I guess we'll both just have to work hard to reach our goals, then. What is it? With a little hesitation, Lilly pushes forward her chin and closes her eyes in an unmistakable gesture. And this again. I accept gladly, our lips touching as they do. I suddenly feel her hand snaking up my chest from beneath my shirt. The feeling of her hand against my bare skin is enough to make my heart suddenly accelerate. So she's in that kind of mood again. While I'm hardly one to complain, she does generally like this, and even... Come on, Curtin. Even with all of my medications, my libido is thankfully still intact. I lean to be kissed further, holding her hand tightly as I feel it tracing the contours of my chest. Evidently, we break off from one another, the room silent but for our breathing. Hey, Hisao? Yeah? I don't suppose you could wear the blindfold again. I wonder what you're planning now, Lilly. Her tentative suggestion takes me by surprise. I suppose she wants to introduce me to... Gosh! What? Or just wants to find out what I'll be like during the act while hampered by the blindfold. Great. With a measure of unease, tempted by curiosity, I do as she says and lowers the blindfold over my eyes. The world becomes dark again. I reflexively tense as I feel Lily's hand gently brush the side of my face, entirely unable to anticipate a touch. I really need to get more used to contacts like this. Even after the weeks we've been going out, it isn't as natural for me as it is for her. Silence? Hey, Lilly. Shh. I obediently follow her instruction and quietly listen, trying to make out anything that's happening around me. Compared to before when I was chasing Lilly, the need to carefully navigate the room's obstacles is now gone. I can take my time and concentrate much harder on listening. It takes a while, but I can eventually pick up the soft sound of her breathing in the otherwise dead silent room. In, out, in, out. Measuring against my own breathing, I realize it's definitely deeper than normal, especially for her. Another sound makes its way to my ears, one that I can't identify immediately. I don't think I've heard it before, but my heart skips a beat as I realize the source. My hand almost reflexively reaching out towards it. Her face feels softer than usual under my touch. Her head just barely turning in acknowledgement towards the fingers of her cheek. Hisao? I gulp and take a moment to try and calm down. I need all the concentration I can muster while I'm like this in order to fully take in my surroundings. After a few deep breaths, I think I managed to collect myself. With a touch so light but it wouldn't disturb a feather, I start to move my hand down her... And I can feel myself losing focus again, thanks to those thin silken pajamas of hers resting so perfectly over the curves of her body. If she's like this, then that means she has to be sitting against her bed and facing me. Now, to continue. Alright, this must be her hip. If I just move slowly downwards... Yes, exactly. This time it's shrimp. You want more? No! I can feel my chest tighten as I rock back and forth frantically, both of us entirely taken with ourselves. Nothing that unusual. I just need to take deeper breaths to steady myself. Stop it, man! This thing is just normal. It's not normal. Yep. This isn't... I can't. This pain is too much. I stumbled backwards from Lilly with unseemly haste, clumsily hitting the back of my foot against the table and falling to the ground with an unceremonious that word crash. Breathing wildly, I frantically scrape a ribbon over my eyes as I lay on my back. I have to get this thing off. I have to get this off. For a moment, everything goes blank. As a rush of newfound light assaults my eyes, my breathing slows from the brink of hyperventilation. Seconds pass, and I carefully measure out the rhyme of my heartbeats with every ounce of concentration I can muster. My heart is normal. It's back to normal. My body feels utterly bizarre as I lay dazed on the floor looking at the ceiling. The adrenaline from before is still pouring through my veins, but my mind is completely exhausted. I prop myself up as I hear Lilly getting off the bed and coming towards me. Hi, Sal. Are you okay? Hi, Sal. I'm fine, Lilly. I'm fine. She gives a sigh of relief, her worried expression collapsing. Her face afterward is the very last I'd ever wanted to see from her. It's a face I detested when I first saw my parents in the hospital all those months ago. Pity. Lilly pities me. I just close my eyes and turn away. Powerless, I feel like throwing up. I can hear the sound of Lilly moving away and quickly attending to herself. The ruffling of her clothing being pulled back on after a moment of searching just barely audible. Sorry. She slowly shakes her head as she finishes buttoning up her top. Her kind smile looks so fragile, so delicate, that it makes my heart sink. Approaching carefully, she feels out the edge of the low table before taking a seat next to me, putting her arms around my chest. I'm sorry, Hisao. I shouldn't have pushed my desires onto you. You don't need to apologize. I'd normally be fine. You've seen that much before. I guess I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. My eyelids feel heavy. Calmly sitting next to her like this is probably letting the adrenaline work itself out of my system and letting my mind relax. So that's why you never took the lead? Yeah, I guess it's a good thing you like to, huh? The joke seems to lighten her expression a little, a fact which helps me let me feel less unease about my unreliable self. Lilly's head comes to rest on my shoulder as I struggle to keep my eyes open. With more difficulty after each blank, I feel completely drained. It's okay, Hisao. It's all okay. No sooner does she say this than a small, quiet tune escapes her lips, entirely too tired to think. All I could do is listen to her soft humming. It's a soft, almost melodic rap-word tone. It sounds familiar, but the more I try to remember its origin, the less I seem able to concentrate. The thin and sense of her head gently rests on my shoulder and her warm body against my side are soothing. The soft humming of her voice, too, relaxes my mind as much as her warmth relaxes my muscles. This singular, quiet moment, after all this farces, it makes me realize just how exhausted I've become. I can feel my eyelids slowly becoming heavier and heavier. Even with the chaos of before, I wish this moment would last forever. Lee and I together sharing a single solitary occasion together, just as we used to. But if that's the case, why does she feel further away than she's ever felt before? The loud clatter of books falling into the return slot abruptly breaks the grip of silence over the school library. Yuko? It becomes a habit of mine to come to the library at least once a week. Not only does the reading itself keep me busy, but discussing books with Hanako and Lilly also does. Obviously startled, Yuko suddenly twists towards the direction of the noise. I'd have thought her used to people dropping books by now since she does work here. Oh, hello, Hisao. Back again? It takes me a moment to respond, my mind still distracted by the familiar melody of Lilly's humming that's hardly left my ears in the several days it's been since I fell asleep to it. Oh, yeah, just returning some books I borrowed. Excuse me, she casts her eyes downwards, presumably to the bin the books dropped into. You're a very heavy reader, aren't you? It's become a bit of a routine now, past the time at least. I wish I had free time to pass. From small talk to depression in less than 5 seconds. I think that's a new record for her. She seems a bit down in general today, even compared to normal. Considering she has to work 2 jobs just to support herself, I could see how that would take a toll on her lifestyle. Come to think of it, the pay of her job can't be all that bad. The idea of staff in such a prestigious private school going hungry strikes me as counterintuitive. Working 2 jobs must take a lot of time. I'll probably never imagine it. You're lucky, being a student. Do you think you'll be able to go to university? If she's asking, then I guess that's the expected result of this kind of education. Private schools like this don't exactly come cheap. I guess. I have the money, I think. I've got plans which will require going to one, and my grades are good enough. It's more of a matter of how I'll pay to do so. University costs so much I'm having to work 2 jobs to afford to enter it. Paying for daily expenses too makes it a lot harder. If you're reading this much though, that means you're doing well in school, right? Interesting logical jump. Not an altogether wrong one though. I suppose so. I didn't find any of the exams very hard, aside from maybe 1 or 2. Do you mind if I ask what studies you're pursuing in university? Yuko appears to generally brighten at that question. Anthropology, to be specific. I'm specializing in the history of classical era Athenian civilization democracy, so Greek? She really seems to know her stuff. Such enthusiasm is to be admired, and it's nice to see her genuinely excited about something. I guess even somebody like Yuko can be happy if she has a visible road ahead of her. That's good to... Yeah, both of us jump at a sudden interruption coming from my pocket. Apologizing profusely and quickly shuffling into the hallway as I fumble with the cover of my mobile phone and glance at the screen. Weird. It's a mobile number that I don't recognize. Considering I can count the number of people with my number on one hand, I briefly wonder whether it's some telemarketer that lucked out. Hello, Hisao Nakai speaking. Geez, pick up faster next time. Anyway, guess who? It only takes me a second to realize the distinctive deep brosque voice. Hey Misha, didn't expect you to call me. You actually think I sound like her? Not at all, Akira. I don't remember giving you my number though, so I thought I'd mess with you. I got Lilly to give it to me. Not hard. She positively brims with pride at that statement. She's trying to get me caught up in her pace, I know it. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that the 2 would share my number though, given how close they are. So, what's up? You free right now? I guess. Why? Could you meet me at the park in town? I just want to talk to you about some stuff. Is that an invitation to a date? What? Of course not. She sounds suddenly chestfallen, her previous teasing nature having instantaneously left. It seems strange for her. Anyway, I don't see why not. When do you want to meet? Kind of now-ish? Wait, right now? But it's... The dead silence suddenly coming up from my phone announces the fact that she has unceremoniously hung up. For a long time I just stand there staring at the cool-ended message on the screen while replying the conversation in my head. What the hell, Kira? Throwing a glance up and down the street, I cross the road and step into the park. I've learned to pace myself on such walks, mostly because Lilly's slower speed during our forays into town means I have to consciously slow myself down. That aside, I hope Kira didn't expect me to be immediately prompt. It takes only a couple of seconds to spot her, waiting on a bench with a can of beer in her hand. The look she gives me as I walk up lacks any hint of acknowledgement or greeting. What is going on then? Yeah, Kira did say that she's moving back to Scotland because of her position in her job. What's with that look? I didn't have come, you know. I knew you would. You're that kind of person after all. I lower my brow to her remark as she disposes of the can, empty by the time I arrived, and a metallic clatter rings out. Akira takes a seat on the old wooden bench and I follow her lead. She takes another can of beer from beside her and opens it before speaking. Taking a large gulp, she seems to really like that stuff. I suppose I don't need to ask what this is about, or rather who it's about. I heard from Lilly that you asked about our family. They share more than phone numbers, that's for sure. I'd probably be very worried right now if it weren't for the total lack of malice in her voice. Rather, her tone sounds almost wistful. Idle curiosity, mostly. I have to admit, I never guessed you two were half Scottish. She gives a weary chuckle of amusement. I've heard that before, trust me. The small smile falls from her face, her eyes looking ahead distantly. Aside from the occasional elderly couple talking as they slowly walk the meandering paths and the odd aging car, it's pleasantly quiet. She didn't tell you everything though, did she? It was pretty brief. Your parents live in Scotland. She hasn't met them since she was 12, and she wants to meet them again. It's always surprised me how devoted she is to our parents, for all the good they did us. The way she says it sounds almost derisive. She gives a small sigh as to quickly brush the feelings away. Why do you think they left, Hisao? Business-related stuff, but could it also be down to Lilly's blindness? Why do I think they left? From what Lilly told me, it was because of work. I guess a pretty decently paying job was involved as well, given the way your parents seem to live. So Lilly went to a private school, and that's why she carries herself with the airs and graces of the upper class. Yeah, since the business in Inverness boomed, our father decided to move directly to the same city as its headquarters. That's just the conclusion I thought you'd come to, though. You're too good-natured. You don't think they left for their career? I'm sitting here blanking to you about it. What do you think? Yumako Academy, sorry. I've always felt that place was kind of creepy, like it was an isolated hideaway for those proper society doesn't want to see nor hear. They probably just rue the fact that Lilly wasn't old enough to be shoved there by the time they left. A long silence follows her abrupt and very harsh criticism of her own parents and Yumako. Lilly's blindness is hardly something they could simply ignore for a higher class family attempts to keep up their appearances, much less so when a lucrative offer is on the table. Eventually Akira gives a derisive snort, her things coming to a head. Moving to secure our financial future with his new job posting, even at a time I've hardly believed it. Not wanting to simply be an avenue for venting, I gently try to steer the discussion. So you stayed in Japan with Lilly then? Either I stayed with her, or she went to live with an ailing grandmother and grandfather. What about Shizune's family? If you're cousins, then our fathers hate each other. I'd have been more than happy to tell them to go screw themselves and live with them anyway, but Lilly wouldn't have wanted that. I'd also have an offer for a job by then, so we did our best to keep our parents' house in proper shape, and try to continue our lives as if they'd never left. So you just lived by yourselves? Basically, Lilly had school and I had my job, so we weren't exactly languishing. With her schooling, her study, and having to do chores while I worked, though, I can't help feeling like I failed her. In the end, I tried to be there for her, and screwed it up. Expecting a 19-year-old to be a mother for a blind child is ridiculous. So Lilly and Akira lived alone after their parents moved, with Lilly largely taking care of herself. I guess that explains her apparent independence compared to many in Yumako. Maku. I may have lived alone much of the time since my parents both worked, but that's just something else entirely. Sorry for making listening to my moaning, Hisao. I don't mind at all, but do you mind if I ask why you're telling me all this? You always were curious. Context, I suppose. Life isn't a fairy tale, Hisao. Some people have to learn that the hard way. She takes a long drink from the can in her hand, her face becoming more depressed and distant. I broke up with my boyfriend a few days ago. After I leave, we're not going to be able to see each other again. But that's how life is. You can't just set your life up and expect it to stay that way forever. Sometimes stuff happens and you have to roll with, even if it means hurting yourself or others. She takes a long breath before looking up at the bright orange sky. Damn, if I smoked, I could take a nice long drag right about now and look kinda cool. I want to respond to help in whatever way I can, but I feel utterly useless. This kind of situation is one I've never been in, and I simply don't have the experience to say anything meaningful to comfort her. Akira looks over and evidently picks up on this, much to my embarrassment. I must look pretty pathetic right now, whining about this as someone I barely know. Hardly, and I'm pretty much an expert on looking pathetic. She gives a chuckle. The act's feeling like a personal victory for me. You're a good kid, Hisao. When I said that I approved of you being with my sister, I wasn't joking or just being nice. She picks herself up off the seat with a grunt, one that seems ill-fitting given her age, and throws the now empty can into the bin after one last swig. It's just unfortunate that doesn't really count for much in this world. When I said I was leaving for Scotland, I was doing it because a good position opened up in our company's HQ. When our folks told me that when we were at their place, though, they also gave Lilly a summons to rejoin them in Inverness. No way. Her evasiveness when asked about her future, that awkwardness that had steadily grown between us, that uncharacteristic outburst of anger, all of them suddenly fit into place. The same family that she reminisced about after Hanukkah's birthday party, the same family that left her and Akira to themselves after taking flight to greener pastures. Now I feel stupid for never cornering Lilly on what was bugging her. I never even considered if something had happened during her trip to her family's home at Inverness. And now a sense of unease grows in my chest. If her family had summoned her to join them in Scotland, all the way to the other side of the earth, has she accepted? Lilly hasn't told me whether she plans to accept, and it seems she hasn't told you either. That's why I called you down here to talk, Hisao. Context, huh? I sit back, my feelings of worry and frustration no doubt written all over my face. Lilly's a strong person, Hisao, but she's not infallible. I guess it's my job to worry about her, being her older sister, but I think that you deserve to know. I understand. You okay? You sound depressed. No, I'm just thinking. That's good. Thinking is good. Being rash won't get you anywhere. She looks at her watch, barely moving her wrist. I've got to go. Will you be okay? I'll be fine. Don't worry, I'll have to talk to Lilly about it and get everything sorted out. She gives a smile, but it doesn't feel all that genuine or sincere. More reassuring. Really, both of us are dancing around the fact that Lily's on the precipice of the biggest decision of her life and is trying to take the entire burden on herself. And part of that burden is the matter of our relationship. But by the time I look up, Akira's already walking off with her hand held high. For the first time in a long while, I finally have an answer to something. Perhaps not even that, but at least I now have the right question to ask. Will you leave or stay? Hurry, Lilly! I'm moving as fast as I can. I can barely make out Lily's voice over the deafening pounding of the rain. Even though I dislike pulling her arm, the situation calls for it. I turn forward, my free hand over my head in a futile attempt to keep at least my hair dry. My vision seems to be in grayscale. This really is rotten weather for summer, and the last kind of climate I'd want for a date. A pity. I even checked the weather forecast beforehand. One of the very few times I've ever done so, only for it to say that Sunday afternoon would be fine. Looking to Lilly, her shoulders are by now completely drenched, with her right hand holding tightly to mine and her left gripping her retracted cane. This horrid downpour came on just when we were between our destination Yamako, so we decided to try rushing the rest of the distance rather than doubling back. Entirely unused to running as far as these, using all her concentration just to avoid tripping over. Hisao, do you know where we're going? Even when she's reduced to shouting to try and be heard over the combined noise of the wind and the rain. The Shanghai. The rest of my voice is completely drowned out by an even harsher burst of rain. For what? The Shanghai! How far is it? It shouldn't be far now. Here we go. It doesn't take long before I call out to her once again. It looks like we're safe. It's just up ahead. I quickly pull up to stop it just in front of a familiar exterior, the lantern outside still giving off its reliable glow, and wait for Lilly to catch her breath before going in. Ladies first. And she does so. The tiny bell inside rings out when I heard the door open for her, and smiling a polite nod being with my reward before entering myself, As I step in between her and wipe my feet, only a quick glance is necessary to notice the distinct lack of activity. But Shanghai doesn't seem to get much in the way of patronage, and today is no different. Only a couple of tables are occupied. Some of the bells ring and the most expected person comes to greet us. Hello! Welcome to the Shanghai. Yuko looks chipper today, Trying to predict her moods is pretty hard, but it's a nice change from the norm. Hello, Yuko. Hey. Good afternoon, you two. Big bow. She takes a deep bow, somewhat taken aback as she rights herself again as she gets a better look at us. What happened to you? You both look... Her eyes drift towards the glass of the door behind us. Oh dear! We're inside now at least. I think that's the most important thing. It's nice and cozy. You're lucky to be working inside today. It has been nice and quiet. I like days like this. Oh wait, sorry, is there anything you'd like? French vanilla tea, please. I'll have the same. Right, coming up. I would have just ordered coffee before knowing Lilly. Anyways, she quickly skitters off with a determined look on her face, trying very hard not to forget our orders. If nothing else, she is at least dedicated to her jobs. I lead Lilly to an empty seat before the two of us settle down. As usual, there's a large difference between my exhausted floppy down on my seat and Lily's delicate sliding to hers, her cane set beside her. For a while, I just idly watch the rain falling outside. The occasional person runs down the street trying to stay as dry as possible, hands often tightly gripping a rain-soaked umbrella. Lee sits just quietly as I. Her eyes closed, she intently listens to all that's happening. It's a comfortable, relaxing silence that exists between us, just the type that we'd so often shared together in the past months, for Lily at least. I can't help replaying the words of her sister in my mind, at times contrasting them to both our time spent together since I entered Yumako, and to the way we've been since we started dating. No matter how much I try, I can't work Lily out. It's as if the harder I try to second guess her emotions or potential decision, the more difficult it becomes to try and reach a clear conclusion. It makes me doubt whether I'd ever really understood her. In the end, I'm going to have to ask, even though I very much want to avoid doing so. You seem quiet today, Hisao. Really? You seem so enthusiastic about taking me out on a date. I assume you had something specific you wanted to do. No, not really. Just want to spend some time with you. Is that so? Fine. There was one thing. A little grin finds its way on Lily's face. Knowing her full well that she's bested me, it makes what I want to say all the more awkward. It was just Akira and I were talking. Oh? What's with that tone? You two seem to get along well, don't you? Well, I do think she's a pretty cool person to talk with. It'd be nice if any of the teachers were anything like her. Cool. For a moment I try to place her tone of voice, my mouth curling into a smirk as I realise it. You're not jealous, are you? I'm not jealous. After her teasing me over such a thing on our first day, I don't feel too bad having a little laugh at her expense this time around. As we settle down, though, it's only a minor distraction from the real point of why I brought Lily here. Don't worry, it is mostly just everyday stuff. That said, there was something Akira mentioned that I wanted to talk to you about. When you went to see your family in Inverness a while back, she said, Akira told you about my family's summons, hasn't she? Seconds tick by while I try to read Lily's face, an odd mixture of feelings written on it. She seems annoyed, but also somewhat confused. Here? Yuko tentatively slides our drinks onto the table. Her presence is oddly small. As she walks back to the counter after a quick polite nod, I realise the air between me and Lily is thick and our expressions are both somewhat pensive. Even though she says I should lead my own life, she still interferes at the worst times. I don't think you should blame Akira here. She's just looking out for you. And it's not like I can't understand her concern over this. Lily's irritation gives way to an awkward and largely unsuccessful attempt to mask her feelings. She really doesn't deal well with being cornered on personal topics. I know, but I just wanted some more time. I knew you'd have figured it out eventually, but you were intentionally hiding this from me? For how long were you planning to do so? As I said, I simply wanted more time to think it through. I want to be sure of my decision before telling you. Exactly. What did you decide to do in the end? I know what I want to say, but an awful feeling refused to leave my gut. My family does dearly want me to return to them, and Akira will be going as well. I could still teach a career, as a carer, whether it will be here or there. So, you're going. How long have you known? I already know you were asked when you first went to Scotland about a month ago. Some time. My frustration very nearly boils over. The fact that she's done this affects me more than it should. For her to not only be leaving, but to be actively hiding her own plans from me after seeing me for so long, to be the one solid pillar of support and reliability I could depend on. It felt as if the foundation underneath me is suddenly shifting drastically, much faster than I could adapt to. Perhaps this isn't so much frustration as sheer unease. Lily. I'm sorry, I wanted to think this through completely. I wasn't trying to take advantage of you, please. I know, Lily. I know. This is just really sudden. I guess this means that once you go, we'll be breaking up? For one of the few times I've seen since I've met her, she's generally lost for words. She doesn't look surprised, no doubt because the fact has dawned on her once she became sure of her decision, but rather she appears generally unsure on how to deal with the situation now that's in front of her. We could try pursuing a long-distance relationship. They're getting more and more common these days after all. Even she says this, the tone of her voice gives away that she doesn't truly believe what she's saying. Lilly is far too old-fashioned to be able to cope with a relationship without any kind of physical presence, and even I am to an extent. All we would ever be to teach each other would be a voice from the other side of the world. In the end, trying to rationalize everything is futile. Any attempts to try and connect what's happening with the future or past just seem to get more difficult the more I concentrate. Those quiet moments when we just walked side by side, the precious time we spent with Hanako and Akira, the casual chatter we had during lunchtimes, the times we made love, the confessions of our feelings to each other. All pointless, all just a fleeting moment in our young lives. We're just two children pretending to be adults, aren't we? A long, long silence hangs in the air between us. The noise of our patrons drinking and talking only makes the situation feel more strange and disconnected. Lilly's face remains low, her dejected expression clouding it. I'm sorry, Hisao. A simple apology, and no more. She's left entirely without any further response or comment. With a long sigh, I gather what's left of my thoughts and ask the final question I have for her. When will you be going? I'll be leaving with Akira, so it'll be a little less than a week. The beginning of summer holidays? Just a little afterward, yes. Her tone is unusually slow and steady, her apologetic and depressed mood all the more written on her face as she tries to hide it in her voice. In the end, I can't even keep my promise of going to Tanabata with her before she leaves. I look down, seeing my face reflected in the by now lukewarm cup of neglected tea sitting in front of me. I really thought I'd left this kind of expression behind. The past doesn't escape you. It's like quicksand. The more you try and escape from it, the more it consumes you. For a while, I just stared down into the still surface, trying to sort through my emotions to get at what course of action I should take, whether it be right now or in the future. But just as before, the effort is wasted. I glance up to see Lilly gently sipping her cool tea without complaint, her face drawn and shoulders slumped. She looks to be deep in thought too. A strangely cold atmosphere coming between us as we isolate ourselves to mull things over. Even as Lilly's cup slowly empties, mine remains untouched. It's a long time before I notice the rain dying down outside and a few other patrons of the Shanghai having left. The chill of a rapidly darkening evening permeates the dormitory hallways. While trotting down the corridor to my room, I see an unwelcome movement from up ahead, Kenji. Sure enough, the opening of the door opposite mine heralds the arrival of a bespectacled Kenji. Hey man, what's... Whoa, dude, you look awful, I think. You okay? He really has a knack for making any situation better. I don't really want to go into it. It's late. Okay, that's cool. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm, here. I look at him for a moment before surrendering my stern front and awkwardly scratching the back of my neck, embarrassed by my standoffish response to him. Thanks, Kenji. Hey, it's cool. That's what friends are for, right? Yeah, you're right. See you. I open the door to my own dorm room and close it behind me as he quickly waves me off. The solid thud the door makes against the doorframe sounds out a final call for the life I've led since coming to Yumako. I just stand in my darkened room, fruitlessly attempting to work out what I should do from this point onwards. You have ambitions in mind. You have what you want to do. You want to become a science teacher. And Lilly, either she becomes an English teacher or is as a carer, I don't know. Just what should I do? Letting the matter drop rather than talking about Iwanako to Lilly in the restaurant was indeed the bad choice. It's either a bad end or what you call a normal end. It feels kind of reminiscent to Rin's normal end, where it's kind of ambitions taking over personal feelings. As class ends, I simply rest my head on my hand and stare out of the window to pass the time. It's been a few days since Lilly told me her plans. I haven't been to our ordinary lunchtime hunt since then. Not that there would be much point. Hanaka's been busy with a newspaper club since she newly joined, and has even begun talking in class with Naomi every now and then. Even Lilly, aside from the fact that a meeting between us would have been awkward in any case, has been run off her feet with class representatives' duties as the summer holidays approach. And now they're just about here. With the end of today's bell, the summer holidays would have begun. I suppose that all I'll end up doing will be visiting my parents for a duration lazing around my old home, now that my previous plans are entirely askew. Meanwhile, Akira and Lilly will be en route to Scotland to live out the rest of their lives there. No matter how hard to try to rationalise the idea that once the summer holidays begin, my life will return to the way as it was, it simply refuses to happen. Everyone's moving on with their lives, Lilly's rejoining her family, Akira's moving up in her father's business, Hanaka's gaining new friends and hobbies, and even Yuko's moving ahead with her university aspirations. Even I'm moving forward in the end. With the grades I've gotten so far in Yamaka, much less after such a rocky beginning, the path to getting into teaching science as a career seems straightforward. I suppose I should at least be happy about that much, but it doesn't really seem to help. Hi, Chan? I quickly stopped by ruminating and turned to face the bubbly voice beside me, putting on the most upbeat expression I could muster. As expected, Shizney stands flanking her. I have a sneaking suspicion they want something from me. Hey, Misha, Shizney, what's up? Well, Shai-chan and I were thinking, since we're just two poor little girls that need help with all the work we've been given just before the holidays begin, sure, I can help. But Hai-chan, we really need... What? I think I broke Misha. Yeah. Even Shizney raised an eyebrow at her compasses, shuddering, stopping her tracks. So you help us, Hai-chan. I just said I would, didn't I? It's not like I have anything better to do. Maybe helping them with their work will take my mind off the situation. Misha seems generally ecstatic with my response, but Shizney's expression is clouded and difficult to read. I find myself quickly averting my eyes from her own, as it almost looks like a face of pity, no doubt. It must just be my imagination. Oh gosh, this is hardly the first time I've been in the student council room. Indeed, I've found myself down here often, either to help Lilly with class rep work, or to sort out one thing or another with the student council itself. Now though, it's quite a different place. Papers and folders are strewn across every desk in the room, and a solitary little black laptop atop a single desk sticking out from the mess. It is positively ancient, and I guess it had been valiantly serving its task in archiving information for years and years. So, what needs doing? This is like a lot to do. Shizney's expression becomes determined as she sighs. It's a worrying look. Everything, Ai-chan! My worry was well placed. Everything, you say? What's left on the desk is what needs to be done. It all needs to be digitally recorded, which is what the laptop is for. And I'm guessing that I'll be the one doing this. Shai-chan says she saw you with the computers in the library a few days ago, and that you seemed really good with them. Good with computers? I can touch type, I guess, but it still seems like an overestimation of my skills. I was just typing up homework. Wait, Shizney was watching me doing that? One must know their allies before they can know their enemies, of course. Wow, that's pretty wise. For once, it's not very hard to work out who said that exactly. Yeah, Misha said the latter sentence. Nonetheless, it doesn't seem worth fighting for. Sitting at a computer doing some typing hardly seems onerous, as far as tasks to help Shizney and Misha go. Besides, it will help to take your mind off things. Take my mind off things? Take my mind off what things? Misha's face goes blank as she translates this for Shizney, though the latter's response is only to glance away towards the window after briefly signing. Misha's face quickly returns to a smile as she translates back. She was confused, I guess, but Shizney is harder to pin down. I was just thinking that you may like to get your mind off the exams, of course. Either way, we may as well get it get into it sooner rather than later. I'll go along with you. That's the spirit, Hai-chan. That's the 5th spreadsheet compile and save. Time for the next month's. After a little bit of fussing, we all managed to get a bit more organised. She's been gathering up the loose sheets and thankfully sorted them into a neat pile next to me. Meanwhile, Misha's been handling the manual writing work, her girly pink pen leaving its unmistakable mark on pen after paper. Once I got myself into rhythm, this really wasn't so bad. Shizney and Misha also seemed to be in the swing of things, wordsly communicating as they go about their business with fervour. I periodically glanced at the sheet beside the laptop, apparently a list of students' names and matching addresses, as I dutifully entered the data written on it. I don't pay a lot of attention to what I'm typing in until I reach about midway down the page. Hakamichi, class 3-3. Huh? Her family's name is Saitama. My idle curiosity has entered abruptly as 3 light taps can be heard rapping on the door. Misha quickly skips over to check who it is, tapping Shizney's shoulder on the way past to let her companion know what's happening. Ah, you're here. Who is? With a slight pause to enter Shizney's data into the file along with all the others, I look up to check who's at the door. Lilly. Of course it is Lilly. Lilly? After giving a cursory nod to Misha in greeting, she perks her head up in her trademark manner. Is that Hisao? She's pretty darn good at working out my voice from the smallest of phrases nowadays. Yes, it's me. Hey. The atmosphere feels slightly awkward as she bows. Neither of us knows quite how intimate we should be around each other, given she's leaving in just a matter of hours. This is a fact that thankfully neither the oblivious Misha nor the hard-working Shizney pick up on. So you've got work to do as well? Unfortunately, I arrived as soon as I could. My class held me up with a surprise farewell party and I had to get changed. I glanced down at the laptop's clock. It's pretty much the end of lunchtime, so I guess Lilly managed to wrangle the last period off as well. I take it Shizney is here as well? Of course. And I've been here during all of lunchtime as well. That last comment was really not needed. Shizney baiting Lilly into another argument, I can feel it. I'm sorry, I can't be as hard working as you, Shizney. I'll endeavour to hire more lacqueries to do my work in the future, I assure you. And he just took the bait, escalating things further. But aren't you the one always outsourcing work to your classmates? The difference is that they choose to help, unlike your tyrannical grip on your own class. Wow. Tyranny works. Even if we did things differently, we still get the same results, right? It's the process, though, that's different. This is school, not a police state. You have to remind me when you were appointed class monarch, I'm afraid. You have to seize power. It's not as good if it's just handed to you, but I guess you wouldn't really understand that, right? You'll also have to remind me when monarchs were elected into their positions. Lilly positively bristles at this. Shizney's 2-hit combo forces her onto defense. Yet for all your vaunted power, you cannot get one person to help you without forcing him. But Hisao volunteered. He's such a hard worker. He's doing this instead of meaningless socialization, right? Is that so, Hisao? This is bad. I really end up between a rock and a hard place. It's not meanness. As much as it may pain me to do this, the truth has at least a chance of stopping this argument here and now. It's okay, Lilly. They didn't harass me to come or anything. Lilly gives a disapproving grimace, slightly radiating her strong feelings of displeasure in my general direction. She can be quite scary when she wants to be, though thankfully this isn't often. Hai-chan, you made that sound like it's a regular occurrence. It isn't. In the end, it doesn't take so long as everything's getting done at a good pace. Let's just get this work over with so we can go home. Shizney snorts derisively and gets back to marking off the sheet in front of her, while Lilly sighs and finds her way along the room with her hand following the filing cabinets lined along the wall. This would mark the only time I've managed to successfully defuse one of those situations, but the grudging ceasefire built around the mutual fear and respect makes this feel more like a cold war than any real peace. I can't take all the credit though. Lilly's leaving sure has affected Shizney to some extent to make her give up so easily. Moments before getting back to my work, I noticed Lilly reaching up to grab something from above the filing cabinet, almost offered to help, but her height gives her ample ability to take it down safely. Once she sets the strangely shaped device on the desk beside me, I realise just what it is. Sort of, as she takes the old green covering off and sits down. It's a typewriter. At first glance it seems to be an old metallic blue typewriter, but it doesn't take me long to realise it's far from ordinary. It has far fewer keys than expected, and those it has show no lettering printed on them. Only the shadows cast by the tiny braille dots on them give a hint to the thing's purpose. Blind typewriter? Oh, this? Well, you're not far off. A braille typewriter. It's normally called a Perkins Brailler, but this is basically a typewriter for the blind, yes. It presses braille into the page rather than text, which is why it has fewer keys. That's really neat. She gives a light-hearted grin at my curiosity over it. I have to admit that it appeals to my sense of novelty. Without further ado, we each get back to our allotted tasks. The loud clunking of the mechanics in Lilly's brailler and the tapping of the laptop's old and weary keyboard quickly fill the room. It's a nice atmosphere, really. Everyone knows what they have to do, and Lee and I get to sit beside each other and exchange the odd words as we work away. Nostalgic? That's what it feels like. It's pleasant, but just slightly stained with the knowledge that our time together is nearing its end. Excuse me, Misha? To properly address her, Misha bounces over from the filing cabinet she's peering into, in spite of Lily's lack of sight. For a moment I think it's strange, but then realise exactly what I do. What's up? Could you ask Shizney where the attendance records for Class 3-2 are? I think they've been moved. Okie dokie. And with that, she flitters off to Shizney, who's working at a table behind us. Lily's familiarity with the council room and the efficiency with which she works reminds me that she, Misha, and Shizney used to all work together in student council. Maybe this is a fitting end of her stay in Yamako, working away just like she used to, surrounded by those she loves and at least likes. I look up, getting taken off guard by Shizney sorting through a drawer rather than Misha. Sure enough, she plucks out a Mania folder, entirely blank save for just barely visible bumps on its front, and holds it in front of Lily. Lily hands felt over it to check what it is, her fingers filling out the dots of braille and confirming it's what she asked for. Thank you, Misha. No reply. No reply, that is, save for an old grin, no, smile on Shizney's face. Great. A couple of seconds pass before Lily checks that it isn't Misha behind her, but Shizney. Her momentary look of surprise is replaced by a slightly bashful smile. What's going on now? For a few moments the room is all but silent and still. Eventually though, Shizney strides back to her workstation and Lily begins typing once again. It only lasted a handful of seconds in all, but it feels like years of communication were made up for in that one-sided exchange. There, finished. I lean my head back and rub my eyes to try and work away their weariness. Staring at that small and rather poor screen has taken its toll. Excellent timing. The only thing left is to file these away and I'll have my workload finished as well. Good. I can pack up a brain and put it away while you do that. Thank you, Hisao. Misha, are you and Shizney far from being done? I look around for the two as I replace the cover over the brailler only to see them waiting at the door. I guess they must be waiting for us. God damn it. With a minimal of time wasted, we file and pick up everything that remains and join them. Thanks for waiting, you two. We couldn't just take all without you, Hai-chan. You've been a great help. Shizney nods approvingly, pleased with my efforts. I guess that's the last class representative work done and over with then. That's right. I'll miss you, Lily. I think it was fun working with you. Thank you, Misha. It's been good working with you. And Shizney. There's a bit of a pause there. Shizney thinks for a moment before formulating her response. It's not that she often communicates without thinking, quite the opposite, but this time it's even more considered than usual. Misha looks a little surprised before passing on the message. Shizney says, You better do your work over there better than you did it here. Far from taking offense, Lilly giggles into her hand. If that's the case, then please tell Shizney to give those still here a little more understanding in the future. Competitive until the last, maybe Shizney and Lilly aren't so different after all. Shai-chan says that she'll be checking to make sure you live up to your end of a promise. Then that's how it will be. I'd better be off then. Goodbye, Shizney. Goodbye, Misha. Hisao? Lee takes a hold of my arm in hers. There be no need for a cane if I'm here to guide her. With a nod of farewell to the two, we set off out the door and make our way to the school grounds. As I turn to wave goodbye to them, I notice Shizney's gaze lingering on Lilly. They may annoy each other, but their family bonds aren't easily broken. Got all your papers sorted then? Yes, they've all been filed out and handed in. On top of things as always, aren't you? She gives an earnest smile at that compliment, but it feels as if her happiness is just a veneer over the fact that she's fully aware of how much she's leaving behind. It reminds me of how she was like when I first met her, always smiling, always that little bit aloof, always that little distance away from everybody. Even now she maintains that air around many others, especially those she's not close to. I had hoped that our time together would have changed that fact. Our pace slows. The two of us come into a halt in the all but empty school grounds. Hisao, is something that... Lee's words are cut short as I turn and wrap my arms around her, pulling her tight. I may not usually be given to such impulsive actions, but I just want to be close to her, even if it's the last time I'll be able to. All the other students have retreated to their dormitories and homes, only the ruffling of leaves in the breeze making any sound better. As I draw back, I can see she has dropped her carefully maintained smile. Her hand hesitates, wanting neither to leave nor to stay on my features. She has put up a brave show, but her slight trembling gives her away. Lee may be able to control herself well, but even she can't hold her composure together now. This is the woman I've come to love, but also the one who in all too short a time will leave the country forever. I'm sorry, Hisao. It's okay. You've got your own life to live, to lead, after all. Damn. We walk out to the hallway in the girls' dormitory hand in hand. Our emotions by now are largely quelled. Nevertheless, my hands grip each other much more tightly than before. Faint, muffled voice can be heard from Lilly's room, the origins of which aren't difficult to guess. Hanako. The moment she opens the door, Hanako bursts through and wraps her arms around Lilly, taking her very obviously by surprise. Lilly! Lilly! Hanako? I'm going to miss you, Lilly. As expected, she's on the verge of tears. Lilly gently rubs Hanako's hair with her hand in response, then pulls back and gives a warm, reassuring smile. Looking beyond Hanako, Akira can be seen getting up from the side of Lilly's bed and scratching her head. Her eyes turn to Lilly and Hanako to me. A stilted, weak smile hanging on her face. I tried to return a more genuinely happy look, but the result was probably just the same. So, everything's set. Managed to hold back from killing Shizney? The comment draws an amused giggle from her sister. Yes, I have everything in order, and yes, I managed not to. Have you packed everything you need? Got the 2 bags right here, but there's still stuff left at the Hakamechi's home. I could pick that up while we wait there for tomorrow evening's flight, though. So that's where they were going when they were going en route to the Hakamichis. That was just a stop-off point to gather some things. Return. Akira gives the 2 large black travelling bags on the floor a hearty pat. She probably came to help pack and make sure everything was in order on Lilly's end, before going together with her. Lilly, will you be okay over there? I'll be alright, I assure you. I'll have Akira looking after me as well, and you know that she's reliable. But, don't worry, Hanako. I have your phone number after all, so you can stay in touch. With Akira's help, I can send you things over the internet as well. Hey, don't use me just because you won't learn how to use a computer. Hanako and Lilly both giggle briefly, the mood lightened ever so little. That goes for you too, Hisao. I promise I'll contact you once I'm in Scotland. Scotland! I know. I'll be looking forward to it. Her offer may be kind, but we both know that this is tantamount to breaking up. Neither of us have any illusions to how well we manage a long-distance relationship. With nary a word of prompting before us begin the long solemn walk to the school gate. The numerous lamps scattered around the Numako grounds failed to do much more than provide pinpoints of light in otherwise dense darkness. A car parked on the road just outside the school grounds come into view, its shining black exterior reflecting the dimly lit lamps of Numako. I called to Akira in an effort to alleviate a bit the heavy atmosphere. That your car? What kind is it? Don't you know much about cars? It's a Lancer Evo, so it's a Mitsubishi. Solid and speedy. Well, it's not as if her comment on my knowledge is off the mark. I've never really taken interest in them. She gives a small sigh. She's been good. Pity I have to part with it tomorrow, just like the summer house. You guys were the last to visit it before it changed hands. Turning back from my rather faulty attempt at small talk, I glanced at Hanako and Lilly, following behind us. By rights, Hanako should be leading Lilly, but it's rather definitely the other way around as she clings tightly to Lilly's arm. It's a depressing sight. So, I guess this is it. Indeed. Although the time for everyone to say their farewells is now, nobody really wants to take the first step, as it's as if the longer nobody speaks, the better the chances of them simply not leaving. Lilly, do you really have to go? I'm sorry, Hanako. I won't be leaving you forever, though. I can still call you. Hisao will still be here as well. I nod, but Hanako just clutches all the tighter to Lily's arm. After spending so long without anyone to call family, it must be excruciating to have to say goodbye to the one person that was as close to her mother as anyone could have been in her life. Lily let out a long sad breath. All Akira and I could really do is stand by quietly on the sidelines, since the only person that could solve this would be Lily herself. Eventually, Lily pulls her arms from Hanako's grip and holds both her shoulders, gently. A much more decisive way of address than I've ever seen Lily take with her. Hanako, remember when we first met? When you entered my room for the first time overhearing my counseling of a friend, you didn't say a single word for the entire night. Even as I poured you tea and talked, you sat silently and simply listened to what I said. It took many quiet meetings like that before you began to open up to me, but as you began to, I felt some of the happiest moments I've ever felt. I didn't become your friend because I pitied you, Hanako. I became your friend because I knew you were hiding not just from me, but from everyone. Your ambitions, personality, interests, tastes. I didn't know any of them, and neither did anybody else. As you showed yourself to me, though, I began to realize the person that you were, and became certain that our meeting was a very special moment. But Lee cuts her words short as she brings her hand to Hanako's head and brushes over her bangs to the side, gently pressing her lips to Hanako's forehead. As she pulls her head back, leaving Hanako all but speechless and her eyes moist, Lee beams a wide smile. I believe you are a very beautiful person, Hanako, and I am certain that you will become a strong and confident woman. You are a very dear friend, and someone whom I love very much, just like Hisao. I'll never forget you for as long as I live. I may be leaving, but you have your own life here to lead, just as I do. You have your own friends and hobbies, and your own hopes after graduation. I want you to devote yourself to them, even after I'm not around anymore. That is why I think you will be okay, because you are your own self, with your own life. You yourself proved that to me. Hanako lowers her head in embarrassment, but nods she does so. I understand. I know I have to say goodbye. I know you have to go your own way. But thank you, Lily, for everything. Thank you, Hanako. Will you be okay? There are a few seconds of silence before the answer comes. I will. Lily smiles, undoubtedly at least partly in relief. That makes me very happy then. Goodbye. Goodbye, Lily. And farewell to you as well, Hisao. Goodbye. I'll miss you. She paused for a moment before walking up to me, her right hand outstretched in front of us, takes a hold of my shoulder. Her left hand slowly and daintily reached towards my face, taking my cheek in her palm. For a while she simply holds my face, her fingers just slightly moving to take in its contours. Usually her hand would be warm when doing such a thing, but benign airs giving her skin a cool edge. I'm not sure how long we stay like this. Her clouded eyes pointed just below my own as she wears a wistful, almost distant smile. Eventually, though, I take her cold hand in mine. It's difficult to do so, but with a slight sigh, I gently remove her hand from my cheek. I hope you have a long and happy life, no matter where you might go. Thank you. I'll make sure to. She takes a long, trembling breath before turning slightly towards Akira's direction. Akira? Okay. With a nod, she takes Lilly's hands and begins to guide her to the car parked outside the gates. They both walk slowly and deliberately, as if their movements had been rehearsed in advance. It's strange to feel like this now, watching somebody leave Yumako. The feeling of unease I have now reminds me of the first time I walked through those black wrought iron gates. They always looked far too pompous for what they were. As they leave, all of us know full well that our lives are irreversibly changing. I'd always told myself I just have to take life as it comes, but everything's changing so fast, so suddenly. In the end, Lee is an irreplaceable part of the lives of both Hanaka and me. The noise of Akira opening the passenger door for Lilly brings me out of my thoughts, her hand waving back as Lilly gets in. See you guys. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, Hanako. Goodbye, Hisao. Hanaka's hand quickly shoots up, her face brightened by enthusiastic farewell. Goodbye, Lilly. Goodbye. See you, Akira. And goodbye, Lilly. The door shuts as we all put on our best happy farewell faces. Akira gets in the car herself and starting it up in short measure. Lee's hand can just be seen waving through the tinted windows, both her hands waving high as well. Just as every other time I've done such things, I can't quite work out precisely why I, or Hanaka, waved her given that she'd never see us doing so, but it doesn't matter. Even after that black shiny car goes down the hill and disappears into the dark night, we carry on waving and seeing Akira and Lilly off. And then, they're gone. A strange stillness takes over as our hands return to our sides. I don't quite know what I should do or how I should feel. In the end, we just stand there silently staring down at where the car disappeared from sight. Goodbye, Lilly. All I could do in response to her quiet, mournful goodbye is to place a hand on her shoulder. She looked at me for a few moments before looking back down the hill, secure in the knowledge I'm still around for her. What we'll do from now on doesn't seem all that uncertain. We'll have our own ambitions now, just as Lilly said. But even so, it feels like there's a certain missing part in both of our lives now, something that can never be replaced. A hole in our heart that will never be filled. And wow, the ending itself. So, that isn't a bad ending of sorts. But that isn't what you would call a good ending either in any case. Like, you can see that the credits are in the middle of the screen, so it's not a good ending. But I think in some ways, this out of the two normal endings of the game, because Shizunie, Emi, and Hanako did not have normal endings. They only had either a bad ending or a good ending. But out of Rin's and Lilly's ones, that what would be called the more friendship forming way, not friendship forming, but friendship keeping, because Rin's was, don't see me again, I've got ambitions of my own to this art college and this degree that I've pursued for and stuff like that. But I think there's going to be a twist in Lilly's good ending, but I don't think there's a bad ending of sorts. Like, the choices made throughout the game and Lilly's own personality, I don't think that there is a sort of bad ending at all within the game itself. There's a lot here, and there's still a lot left to uncover. Even in the routes that I've completed, there's still a lot left, even after everything we've been through. Like all these different CGs here. There's a few CGs missing, which I believe is the good route of Lilly's. Well, the good part of Lilly's route, the good ending of Lilly's route. And there's still other things here and there, which I kind of think they're the adult-only content. And there's this one here, which is a set of accessories. Yeah, they're all like different objects that have appeared throughout the game. Him, the letter, different parts of the letter, that photo that Akira showed us. There's still a lot to this. But part of it I won't be able to cover because I think some of the content itself is based within the adult content, which I don't want to show, for obvious reasons. So thank you so much for watching, folks. There's going to be either 1 or 2 more episodes left of this game, 2 at the very most, 1 at the very least, which will cover Lilly's good ending of the game. And I'm really excited to see about it, because I think there's going to be some kind of wedge in Lilly's thinking that rather than pursuing some kind of carer goal for Inverness, she would have to ring up her family to say, no, I'm not going to come back as a carer, because in that moment I'm deciding that I want to keep pursuing my ambitions to be an English teacher that can read in Braille, and break that part of her promise. But Akira would still go back, but Lilly would stay in Yamaka, or... Gee, as I'm thinking about it now, the hardy home that they had up north, that could be Lilly and Hisao's new home in the good ending. So that's what I'm predicting. But right now, folks, thank you so much for watching, and see each other's in the next and quite possible final time of Katawa Shoujo. It's definitely a long route. Long, like Rin's route. Like, Lilly and Rin's routes are the longest ones in the game. Anyways, folks, take care, and thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.